So you're ready to get cattle. You got your small farm, you got your homestead, you've got everything in place that you've heard on my channel before. If not, go back and listen to some of that stuff. And you're ready to buy cattle, but you need to know which ones are good. So first off, I just did a video. I'll put it down in the description. It was the very last video that I did about how to get started, the information I think you need to know and pay attention to before you get your first animal. But today we're gonna be talking about how to select that correct animal. And my advice was to go buy bred heifers or young bred cows. So today, as we're talking about selecting, we're mainly gonna look at female breeding stock, not necessarily show animals or steers or the right animal for meat as far as buying one just to butcher it, but mainly how to build your farm or your homestead with buying the correct breed stock. Let's get started. So looking at an animal is actually the second thing I do. The very first thing I do is I have a set of parameters that I go by, and I make sure the cows that I'm looking at fit into that parameter gate. I'm gonna put that at the end of the video because what you're really here for is how to look at them and what I look for. But if you wanna stick around, I'll tell you those things that are really important, that are more conversational or looking at how they're raised than it is looking at the animal. Let's get started with what I wanna look at when I'm looking at this cow. Very first thing I look at is from the bottom of the belly to the top of the back. That distance there versus the bottom of the belly to the ground. Okay, so my goal is that from the ground to the bottom of the belly is 1/3 that distance from the ground to the top of the back, meaning that from the belly to the top of the back is 2/3 and that distance between. So they're short, but they're really deep bellied. Now that's a cow, that's a 4-year-old there. And so you expect a 4 or 5-year-old, which is typically how they rank younger cows in the 4 or 5-year-old stage. That means she's gonna have her third calf or perhaps second calf, but mainly third calf coming in here. She's pregnant with her third calf now. Heifers are a little bit different. So these are younger heifers right here next to them. You can see here, they're about 50-50, but just a hair bit more in that belly to back than there are legs. We'll go out here for this other one that's standing. So here's another nice cow, belly to back, belly to ground. Here we have a red Angus heifer. If you get down even, you can see big belly to back is bigger than belly to ground, but she's gonna dip them up. She's a heifer, she's just now been bred. She won't have a calf for 8-9 more months. She should be breeding right now for a fall calf. That was a red Angus. Let's look at a South Pole. So this is a South Pole cow. She's had one calf. This is her first calf. These little calves are coming up and playing with me here. Hey buddy, hey buddy. So we look at the cow, belly to back, deep, belly to ground, really shallow, right? So less than 2 feet tall, big depth. That's the very first thing I look at. The second thing I look at is the width. And so I'm looking at the width of the rear hips and the width of the gut. Now this is gonna change depending on how long they're pregnant. So this number right here is really wide, right? But she's not due to have a calf for another 7 months. So she was bred in December here, and it'll be, well, I guess it'll be 8 months. She'll have a baby, 9 months, right? So I'm expecting September, late August to early September calves out of her. Then we go to a bigger one that's gonna have a fall calf, and you can see how wide she is from side to side. Really wide gut. You would expect that. There's a baby calf in there that's coming out in 2 months here. Here we've got another white-faced red Angus that I bought last year, and this is actually her calf. She was bred to a black bull. Now she is bred to my South Pole bull. You can see how wide she is. Super wide in the hips, super wide in the gut. That is her 9-month, 10-month-old calf. She will have another calf in 2 to 3 months here, back on the March schedule. So she's super wide. I've showed you from the front. You really want to look at the hips, make sure she has wide hips to grow into. The hips aren't showing big divots, meaning she's thin. So you can't see ribs, you can't see divots, but they're really wide. They can hold a calf. So here's the rear end of a baldy. This is a Hereford Angus, Black Angus mix. So a white-faced baldy here. She's due in March, so 2 months from now. And you can see how wide she is. She's been a very good mother. And so I thought she was a little thin in the rear end when I first got her, but she's such a good mother. She puts on weight really well. She takes really good care of her calf, which is another thing to call later. Once you get these animals, you start seeing their behaviors, you decide, okay, I'm keeping the best, and I call or CULL, get rid of some of the others. But you can see how wide she is. Got another South Pole here. The next thing I look at is her udder. So underneath of her, and I'm just making sure the teats are straight. She doesn't have a crooked one, or she's not missing one. Everything looks good with her udder. And I don't want a really deep, big udder like you would see in a dairy cow. They don't need a lot of milk. So their smaller udders are fine. You want to be able to see it come down. If they've dropped a calf and you're buying a cow-calf pair, they will be much lower because they're in milk, obviously. But you want to look at those and say, is there anything messed up with her teats? Here we have another Baldy, deep-bellied, right? She's really deep, short to the ground. She's due in March, really wide back in the back end. Her legs are strong and she walks smoothly, but her legs aren't ginormous. She has these smaller little legs that are just cow legs, thin like these heifers over here, not big like this bull, not big, massive, muscular ends like these show cattle get. So I'm not really caring about how big her legs are at the bottom trunk, but that she has big enough legs to maintain her weight. Okay, so look how big her feet are. We've got a Red Angus over here that has really big feet. She's a little bit bigger. That's the one that got to 13.25, a little bit over my parameters. But we want to look at the legs and watch her walk. Does she limp? Does her back foot step down where her front foot steps down? I look at that a little bit. Does she walk? Does she walk easily? Does she walk smoothly? Is she stepping or pulling or dragging? So we're not looking really for a show animal, but does she walk well? Look at the width of this Red Angus. She was just bred this month. She's not even pregnant or just now pregnant. So we still got 8 months left, for her to drop a calf. It's not the size of my fist in there. Ginormous width. So those are the things I'm looking at in step 2, basically. But those are the things I'm looking at as far as condition. Are they fat? Where is the fat at? Is it on the tail head? Do they have fat? Because I typically buy late in the fall or early in the spring. So late in the fall, they better have enough fat on them to get me through winter. And in the spring, I want to see that they had good condition without feeding grain. So that's going to tell me they're going to do good on grass. And the longer you keep these animals, the more you're going to call and get rid of the ones that don't stay good on weight, that don't eat well on grass, that don't take that aren't good mothers to their calves and take good care of their calves. Those are all things down the road, but this is what I look at. Now let's go into the parameters. So the very first thing that I do is I have a set of parameters that I go by. What I want all of my animals to look like. Size, color, weight, all that kind of stuff. And so I first look at that, and it has to fit in that. And so I have a few. Some of them are a little quirky and you don't need to apply them, but the first thing is that I don't want a whole lot more than 1,200, 1,250. So if an animal is bigger than 1,250 as a female, she's off. She's gone off my farm. They create too much pugging. That's too much weight. They eat a lot of grass and they produce the same calf. So for me, I prefer a smaller 1,100 to 1,200 pound cow, 4 to 5 years old, or a heifer. So when I select heifers, they're usually 900 to 1,000 because I know they're going to gain a couple hundred pounds as they get older. But that's the first thing. That's the size of animal I'm looking for. Big and wide, short in stature, but in that weight range of 11 to 1,250. The second thing is I'm looking for good grass genetics. We raise grass-fed animals here, and so I want good grass genetics. Even if you want to have grain-fed beef, even if you're planning on dropping steers, jamming them in a barn, and filling them full of grain, you still want cows that do well on grass. But we're particular about this. We want cows that stay heavy-fleshed on grass, especially fescue. So I'm looking for cows that have never had grain. Now I'll ask a guy, are they grass-fed or grain-fed? And he'll say, oh, they're predominantly grass-fed. Well, predominantly is the key word that he just told me. So then I'll ask the other question, have they ever had grain? And he'll say, oh, well, I give them a little bit of grain in the winter. How much is a little bit? And I just keep asking until I get down to the true detail. If he's given 1 or 2 pounds a day for 30 days when they first calve, I don't really get upset, and you can tell. But if they're giving them a bunch of grain in the winter and they look nice and fat, that's the reason. It's because of the grain. It doesn't mean they're going to grow perfectly on grass. So I ask those questions to delve into it, and I'm over-exaggerating it for you because that's what I want you to do, is over-exaggerate your questions to the person you're buying them from, so you know when a cow looks like this and is good in flesh in January, is it because they're good on grass, or is it because he's been giving them grain, or whoever you're buying from? So what do I do about stockyard animals? And I have bought some animals out of stockyards. Well, there's 2 things you can do. The first thing is, before the auction, we have catwalks here. We can walk along that catwalk and look down in the pen, or you can get close to the pen and looking at the cattle. If I look in, and this is all one guy's herd that he brought in, all the ones he's getting rid of, and I like some of them, I'll look down at the floor. If there's corn in their poop, they've had grain. If there's not, if it's green, if it's got a bunch of silage or whatever it's in it, right? It looks like grass, it could be grass. The other thing you can do for a stockyard is just assume they've all got grain in them. That's about the only thing you can do. My next parameter is they have to be calm. And this is why I really like buying from local farmers, because you'll know, right? You'll know if he's out there with them. You'll know if when he goes out there, they take off. That's not a guy you want to buy from. You'll know if you can walk up to cows, like there's my bull walking away from me. He's chasing them females. But if you can walk right up to a cow like this, it's fine. You get within a few feet, you're fine. She's more concerned. I just let them into this paddock. They're more concerned right now about eating than they are with me. But if you can walk up to an animal and stick your hand out, and they don't freak out and come at you, or they don't freak out and go the other way, see, she's put her head down, she's eating, you know they're going to be pretty calm. Here's some key things with this though. Cattle are always going to be calmer when they're in a big open pasture like this than they will be in a sorting system. So a really super calm cow, you'll have to almost nudge to go through the sorting system because they're used to rubbing and being next to humans all the time. Out here, I'm not a huge threat to them. So they know that, hey, this guy's out here all the time, and they've got plenty of room to get away from me if they want. But that's my third parameter. They have to be calm. How do you do this at a stockyard? It's very, very hard. So you can watch the ring master or ring guy who's working them. If he goes in there and he flips that flag and they jump, they've got some, anxiousness in them. Now, they've been worked all day. They've been pushed. They've been moved on trailers. So naturally, they're going to be a little more aggressive at a stockyards than they probably will be when you get them home. But there's keys to that. If I go to the pen and I put my hand in and they come up and lick me. Another parameter that I look at is color. And so I'm not super picky on this. And I think most people get too stuck on breed and color. So it's pretty low on my list of what I look at. But I will not buy another all black animal. Every animal in 15 years, every animal that I've had that has been cantankerous or a little more stressed than I want or has jumped a fence has always been all black. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the ones that I got, but I'm done with them. They've got more than 3 strikes with me. They're out. Obviously, I have some nice black animals that will drop black calves, but I will buy white-faced baldies, white-faced with black cow scimitals if they're good. But I predominantly, as you see my herd, stick with more of a red colored animal. They do better in the heat. I'm not negative on white colored animals. I just don't have any. I would really like to try a British white mixed with a South Pole as we get deeper and deeper into genetics. But color, if they come in and they're straight black Angus, I don't even raise my hand. The one thing I'm going to warn you against with my theory or with my process is black animals sell better at a stockyard. So if you're going to sell calves at a stockyards, black calves sell better here in Ohio and Kentucky. They just do. It's just the way it is. So I don't necessarily agree with it, but I do have some black calves, and you can see this. I have black calves that have come out of my black white-faced baldy with my red South Pole bull. So you can get black calves. I've even got one red Angus that was bred to my South Pole bull that obviously she had some but black in her genetics, and I got that black calf right there. So it's good for me. If I need to move a few to the stockyards, I'm gonna pick the black ones, but I don't like black calves or black cows necessarily due to the stress and the heat and those things. It's just my quirkiness. I told you there was one in here. Well, there you have it. I hope this video helps you. I do want to give you the best one. And so I think if you could only pick one, if I could only pick one thing that I would look at an animal, if I went into a pasture and I only had to choose one of those things that I was looking at, I would pick temperament. So I think the way I raise them, a lot of those other things, if they're thin, I can put weight on them. If a cow is in good health and a good temperament, that's my number one thing for me is temperament, because it talks about the stress of this animal and those kind of things. Now, if she turns out to be a bad mom, not breed well, and not do well on grass, obviously I'm going to call her and get rid of her. But there is a chance that she could do well on grass. She just hasn't done well at the farm that she's typically on today because she's thin in the spring or whatever it would be. So temperament is my number one pick. That's the number one thing I look at. I don't want crazy animals. Well, good luck in your cattle selection journeys and in your grazing journeys as you start your small farm or homestead, or if you're getting into cattle and you've had a homestead for a while. I would not worry about a lot of things. There are a lot of people talking about how hard it is to raise cattle and all the problems. It's not as bad as I'm hearing people say. So they're gentle, they can be loving. Obviously my calves are coming up and rubbing on me because we're so friendly with them and we move them all the time. But I wish you good luck in that whole thing. I do want you to know to check out the video that's down in the description that I made about where to start when starting with cattle, or the things you need to know. And so there's a pieces of information that will just help to get you along the right way if you're thinking about getting into cattle and you don't have them yet. So check that video out. Please like and subscribe. Keep following along with us. Thanks for watching.